welcome to episode 2 of the Bucket List podcast. My name is Derek Olson. I am going to be your host. I am a freshman in the College of Communications at Boston University, and if you are listening to the Bucket List podcast today, I am so glad that you could join me. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I will give you a little breakdown of how this podcast works. Here at the Bucket List, we cover news in the NBA world, and we do so at the start of each episode in a form in which I give you everything I'm going to talk about in a list, and then we go down it, and I give you my opinions and thoughts on everything. But if you listened to episode 1 and you're back for episode 2, welcome back. I am so glad that you could join us again. While I'm rehashing everything, once again, I'm going to mention the Instagram, which you can find at @thebucketlist_pod, no caps, underscore there. And while you're at the Instagram, please check out the Linktree, which has the link to our Spotify and anywhere else you can get your podcast. And it also has the link to our guest interest form, where if you are a student at Boston University or you live in the Boston area and you want to be a guest on the podcast, you can fill that out and I can get you on as soon as possible. Before I get into the news of the NBA world, there is some other stuff going on in the world of sports. We have the WNBA playoffs with A'ja Wilson being named MVP and Caitlin Clark being named Rookie of the Year. And the Liberty are entertaining so far. And the MLB playoffs start tonight. Sadly, the Red Sox did not make it because John Henry does not financially support the team, but that's another opinion for another day. This is an NBA podcast. But just to give you some little nuggets of NBA news that I did not find worthy enough to give its own section, I'm going to give you some of those before we get started on the actual bucket list. I'm going to start with Mitchell Robinson being out until December. He is injured, and it has now been determined that he is out until December. Now, I thought this was going to be big because the Knicks had a gaping hole at the center position, but we'll talk about what the Knicks did to fill that later on. And then JJ Redick revealed the starting 5 that he's going to run with for the Lakers as head coach. He is going to go with D'Angelo Russell at the point guard, Austin Reeves at the shooting guard, Rui Hachimura at the small forward, LeBron James at the power forward, and AD at the center. This starting lineup did fairly well last year, and JJ Redick is going to try to run with this lineup and hopefully establish himself as a good enough coach in the NBA. And the Netflix show Starting 5, or Starters, I forget the name of it. It had its premiere last week, and all the players on the show were at the premiere, along with some other ones like DeMar DeRozan was there, I think. But in the show are Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, LeBron James, Jimmy Butler, and Domantas Sabonis. If you like your documentary TV shows and you're an NBA fan, like you like The Last Dance, this is kind of like that. It covered last season, and it covers that from the perspective of all those players. I myself will be interested, although I have limited access to Netflix. That's where you can find the series. But yeah, if you're into TV and basketball, then I recommend that highly. But now let's put that aside, and we're going to get into the actual bucket list. I wrote this down last week, and I had meant to record last week. Apologies, I did not release an episode last week. I was a little busy with classes, and news was a little slow. But on Sunday, September 27th, the Knicks decided to drop an absolute bombshell of news on me and make a giant trade that we're going to talk about. So now I have plenty of stuff to talk about for this week, covering last week and this week. So here is the bucket list for today's episode. We're going to be looking at the top 10 games I'm looking forward to this season. I'm going to cover the Boston Celtics Media Day because Boston's Media Day was last week. Even though every other team had Media Day yesterday, I can put that in an episode next week. I can talk about it a little bit today. I didn't really write down notes for it, so I'm not as prepared for a full section, but I can discuss that a little bit. But I'm fully going to talk about Boston's Media Day, and then I'm going to cover the massive trade that was Karl Anthony Towns being traded to the New York Knicks, and then we're going to wrap it up and look to the game on October 4th with the Celtics and the Nuggets in Abu Dhabi. So, without further ado, we're going to get started with our first section on the bucket list, and I'm going to give you my top 10 games I'm looking forward to this season. As I usually do with my countdowns, I have some honorable mentions. I have 2 honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is the Phoenix Suns at the Oklahoma City Thunder on February 5th. Kevin Durant obviously started out his career in Oklahoma. Well, he started out in Seattle, but he started out in Oklahoma City. So KD being back in Oklahoma City is always big. But this game comes near the trade deadline, and people are speculative about how Phoenix is going to do this season. I'm more on the side that I'm confident that they'll perform well this season. But if this Phoenix team absolutely blows up, then this will be an interesting place to see where Phoenix is heading, as this is right before the trade deadline. And KD's back in OKC. And my second honorable mention is the Dallas Mavericks at the Denver Nuggets. Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. Not much else I can say. It's always fun watching them play each other and have fun playing each other. So that's why I have that for an honorable mention. But now we're going to move into my top 10. At the number 10 spot, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Dallas Mavericks. This game is on Christmas Day, so that's already entertaining enough. But now you have a rematch of the Western Conference Finals with not Karl Anthony Towns anymore. I wrote this down with Karl Anthony Towns in mind, but Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. Still, this will be a fun game, I'm sure, on Christmas Day, and I'm looking forward to it. At the number 9 spot, I have the 76ers at the Denver Nuggets on January 21st. Last season, Joel Embiid was injured quite frequently and sat out the one game that the 76ers played the Nuggets, and this is a rematch of the past couple MVP winners. So it'll be fun to watch the top 2 centers in the league face each other. At number 8, I have the Golden State Warriors at the Los Angeles Lakers on February 6th. It's Steph and LeBron. They just won Olympic gold medals over the summer, even though it seems like they're coming towards the end of their career. So I'm really just going to enjoy as much of Stephen Curry versus LeBron James basketball as I can. I think everyone should. When they're gone, you're going to realize how impactful they were and how entertaining they were. So tune into that game because enjoy it while you still can. At the number 7 spot, I have the Philadelphia 76ers at the Boston Celtics on Christmas Day. The 76ers and the Celtics are a great enough rivalry already, but now Philadelphia has added Paul George to the mix, and it'll be interesting to see how that 76ers team matches up with the Celtics now that they have Paul George. At the number 6 spot, I have the Dallas Mavericks at the Golden State Warriors on November 12th. This is the homecoming of Klay Thompson to Golden State after 10 years with the team. And now he's going to be facing Steph Curry. I never thought that I would see a game where Klay Thompson and Steph Curry would be facing each other. That's weird. The Splash Brothers will be facing each other this season. They won't be on the same team. Klay Thompson, an NBA champion, all-star, coming home to his home team. That's big. So tune into that game. At the 5 spot, I have the Denver Nuggets at the Minnesota Timberwolves on November 1st. These are my 2 kind of favorite teams in the Western Conference, and Jokic, who I thought would be taking on Cat in this game, but is not, is anyways taking on Anthony Edwards, and I find both of these teams very fun to watch, so that's why I have that game on here. At the number 4 spot, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder at the San Antonio Spurs on November 19th. I think Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama facing each other is must-see basketball for the rest of their careers, after what we saw last year. And Oklahoma City and San Antonio are already interesting teams to me this season. I'm interested to see how everything plays out for the two of them. So, a semi early on in the season matchup between these two will be fun to watch. At the number 3 spot, I have opening night of the New York Knicks at the Boston Celtics. This game is even more exciting for me. It might be at the 2 spot now after the Cat trade. It might be. But it's already exciting enough. Ring ceremony, banner night, Mikal Bridges, Cat, taking on the reigning champions. That's exciting. So, tune in. At the number 2 spot, I have the Dallas Mavericks at the Boston Celtics on February 6th. Finals rematch, obviously, and the Mavericks have Klay Thompson now. So I'm interested to see how Kyrie, Luka, and Klay match up against the Celtics. And then at the 1 spot, I have the Boston Celtics at the Denver Nuggets on January 7th. Last year, early on in the season, I feel like Boston and Denver had one of the best games of the season. It was entertaining. It was close. It felt like finals basketball early on in the season. And I hope to get the same kind of vibes from this game. I feel like the Celtics and the Nuggets create the best basketball games to watch in the league, and that's why it's at my number 1 spot. So that covers the top 10 games I'm looking forward to this NBA season. And now we're going to move on to the next section of the bucket list, where I'm going to cover the Boston Celtics Media Day. Now, the rest of the NBA's Media Day was yesterday. Little nuggets I can think off the top of my head. Jimmy Butler showed up with regular hair. Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama were together for the first time. The Knicks were kind of dodgy about the Cat trade questions because it's not official yet. And that's all I can think of. I'll bring you a full section next week on the next episode. But for now, that's all I have on the NBA Media Day. But for the Celtics Media Day, I wrote down some quotes. My first quote comes from Joe Mazzulla. These are just a collection of interesting quotes I liked from the Media Day. Joe Mazzulla said, "We want to win a championship every single year. That's the goal. That's the standard. That's the expectation." So, reigning champions, sometimes it feels like they're going to let their foot off the gas and get cocky. But this team retained every single piece, which is actually uncommon for defending champions. Sometimes some of your role players will go out and get more money than what they were being paid. But you didn't lose anyone except for O'Shea Brissett, who didn't really get any playing time when it came to crunch time. And this team is, Joe Mazzulla is one of the hungriest coaches in the league, and this team is hungry. Especially after the summer Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown had, Jaylen Brown being left off the Olympics team, and Jason Tatum getting 2 games where he didn't even play at all on the Olympics team. So both of those guys look very hungry, they look very confident, and they look very ready for this season. News on Kristaps Porzingis' injury. He'll be returning in December, but Brad Stevens did say that they really like how he's looking right now. And does this add speculation that he could be returning sooner? We don't know. Jason Tatum did in fact state that we have not seen the best version of Jason Tatum yet. He's working on a new shooting form. He worked on one with Drew Hanlon over the summer. And there are some videos on the internet of Jason's new shot form. It looks quicker. His shoulders are forward. I hope it works out. His shooting's a little iffy sometimes, so I hope this buttons it up and makes his game more consistent. And I know I talked about Brad Stevens on the mic already, but these are just a collection of quotes from Brad Stevens at Media Day, discussing the potential sale of the team, the Grouch Beck family putting the team up for sale. Brad Stevens, when asked about the sale, was told that Wick told him it's business as usual. So I don't think the team will be sold anytime soon. I think it'll be sold within 3 to 5 years. But right now, you're defending champions. It's business as usual. go out, get another one, make us proud. And that's all I had on Brad Stevens. And then we moved to Derek White. He had a very eventful offseason. He got his tooth repaired. A few weeks ago, he got in a fight at a Colorado football game. And he was also a gold medalist over the summer. So he got on the mic. He discussed his eventful offseason. And then Al Horford said retirement's not really in the picture yet. So that's exciting. Everyone seems confident. Everyone seems ready. Everyone seems hungry. That's all I have on Boston Celtics Media Day. So that covers that section. And now we're going to skip the viewer input section. If you didn't realize, I did not have a viewer input section in this episode, which I normally do. For new listeners, I will post on the Instagram the week I'm recording with a poll of asking what I should talk about in the podcast, and you have an opportunity to have your topic discussed on the podcast. But I'm foregoing the viewer input section this week so that I can discuss the massive news that is the Karl Anthony Towns trade. So, Karl Anthony Towns was traded to the Knicks for Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, Keita Bates-Diop, and a first-rounder via the Pistons. The Charlotte Hornets were also involved in this trade, where the Knicks sent them Daquan Jeffries in draft compensation. Now, the Hornets were involved in this trade to kind of aid the financials of these teams since they're both reaching kind of the tax apron. But just an overall analysis of the trade, the New York Knicks finally got their center. With Mitchell Robinson being out till December, you go out and get Karl Anthony Towns. One would think that the Knicks would just go out and get a substitute until December, but now they have Karl Anthony Towns, which is a permanent replacement. The only one remaining from the 2021 Knicks team is Mitchell Robinson, and honestly, I don't know how much longer Mitchell Robinson's going to be around because you just traded for Karl Anthony Towns. But on the Timberwolves side of the trade, they ease up cap space. Cat's contract was obviously big, and tax implications and salary cap and all that. Getting Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo instead eases the financials a bit, and it puts Gobert at the 5, it puts Randle at the 4, it gives you DiVincenzo, a nice defensive guy, and this really makes it Anthony Edwards' team, surrounded by Naz Reid, who you can also swap with Randle a bit. You've got 3 guys who can kind of play the center, Jaden McDaniels, and obviously the team is now centered around Anthony Edwards. And as I so praised on episode 1, the Villanova boys are over already. Now, this trade may have an effect on the Knicks team chemistry as you lose that college teammate connection of all those 4 guys. But talent-wise, you have definitely made an upgrade. You have Jalen Brunson, you have Mikal Bridges, you have OG Anunoby, you have Cat, you have Precious Achiuwa. I really like this Knicks team, even though the chemistry may not be as special or entertaining anymore. I like what they did with this trade. I do believe that this trade will have implications on the standings come the end of the season. I made predictions for the standings for the end of the season on episode 1. I have those standings right in front of me, and I'm going to give you the changes that I think are going to happen as a result of this trade. In the Eastern Conference, I believe that the Knicks will now make the jump from the 4th seed to the 2nd seed as a result of this trade. The Knicks objectively got better due to this trade, and from Media Day, we learned that Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo didn't really work on their chemistry this offseason. A big reason why I thought the Bucks would be better next season was that Damian Lillard and Giannis were going to work out all their patches and become teammates and become co-leaders of the team. But it does not seem apparent to me that they did so. So I think the Knicks can definitely make the jump to the 2 seed. I wouldn't say combat with the Celtics, but definitely be a threat in the Eastern Conference. And with that Media Day news, I could even see the 76ers finishing ahead of the Bucks, and with the 76ers staying at the 3 seed and the Bucks moving to the 4 seed. For Minnesota, honestly, I don't really see a change for them. I don't know how well Phoenix is going to play. Minnesota still has an amazing roster. You add Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. I feel like you could be pretty set in stone there at the 4 seed, and you wouldn't have too much of a threat losing Cat and gaining Randle and DiVincenzo. So I think Minnesota will stay at the 4 seed, but New York will move up to the 2nd seed. And that's about all I got on the Cat trade. Obviously, it's really huge. It's going to have big implications on the season. We'll see what happens. But that's all I got for the Cat trade. And with that, that's all I got for the bucket list today. It's a bit of a shorter episode, but even last week as I was sitting down to write my notes, I couldn't find as much. I covered the whole offseason already. We're in that liminality period where we're just waiting for the season to begin, which it will, kind of, on October 4th in Abu Dhabi when the Celtics take on the Nuggets. The Celtics and the Nuggets are my most anticipated matchup for the season, but I'm also really excited for this game in Abu Dhabi because I just want basketball. So I'm excited for that as well. I hope you tune into the game because I will, and I'll provide you coverage on that next week along with coverage of Media Day. And before I go, just going to promote it one more time. Please follow our Instagram to stay updated with everything on news on the Bucket List podcast. And it'll also take you to our link tree where you can find the link to our Spotify and anywhere else you can get podcasts, and our guest interest form where you yourself can be on the bucket list if you choose to do so. If you live in the Boston area or are a Boston University student, fill out the form. Let me know what you want to talk about with me on the podcast, and I'll get you on the show. And Celtics game, Nuggets, Abu Dhabi, October 4th. Tune in. But other than that, that's all I got for episode 2 of the Bucket List Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today for episode 2 of the Bucket List Podcast. My name is Derek Olson. I have been your host, and I hope to see you sometime soon. See ya.